Welcome back to Third Phase of Moon. Blake Cousins here with a special report. We received declassified paperwork from the DIA, the Defense Intelligence Agency, in regards to their insight of wormhole technology. Does it exist? Well, we're going to be breaking it down. Is it possible to jump from one place to another in a blink of an eye? What are the ramifications of this report just recently released? You're going to see it right now for the first time on Third Phase of Moon. Everybody, let's go take a ride and see if we could delve into another location just like this and return back from where we came, another world.
Guys, it is raining documents over here at Third Phase of Moon. With all these submissions recently, I have been blown away. But today, what I'm sitting in front of is absolutely on another scale entirely. So I have in front of me a 43-page essay, essentially outlining the theoretical properties and possibilities of creating wormholes and stargates. These were released by Caltech, where in 1985 they discovered on perhaps a smaller scale that they could create some of these anomalies, and then attempted to expound upon them, but came up with some interesting theories in how these different energetic portals could be created. So let's first talk about what a wormhole has in respect to perhaps a black hole or Stargate. So a wormhole itself has no singularity or gravity to crush matter in the way of a black hole, let's say. There is no event horizon, and there's no time dilation, which is a huge advantage when it comes to time travel. And it's spherical at the throat. A black hole, it has a conical shape at the throat, and there is obviously an event horizon from which you cannot return. And at this singularity, it will crush all matter, at least that is the thought. In addition to that, we have uncontrollable variables that are very difficult to stick our thumb on and be able to condense in order to create or recreate something of that magnitude. Now, a Stargate, now this is interesting. What separates a Stargate from a wormhole, although they share many similar properties, a Stargate has a 3D shape, three-dimensional shape at its entrance, and the same reflective shape at its exit. In the middle, you have a two-dimensional shape, which is again reflective of the original shapes on the entrance and the exit, reflecting that. And there is a use of negative energy and exotic matter that goes into the creation of a Stargate, perhaps a little bit more than a wormhole, considering some of this negative energy actually acts as supporting beams within the wormhole itself to keep it from collapsing. This is interesting when I'm thinking about that as a proposition, because we recently just saw on Google Earth some images that had these interesting, nodes that we saw. And of course, there was an arching structure that, hey, maybe there's something else there on the other side that we just didn't see. And we're actually looking at a physical construct of a wormhole. So the reason I'm bringing that up is because I think some of what we're seeing in this document might actually parallel what we were thinking in respect to the validity of that site there at Area 51.
Wow. This has just been a crazy week. Can I just say, when I was in elementary school, my very first science fair project was on time travel and wormholes, way before Stargate came out or any of that. And it was a little more simple in my mind when I presented it then as to what I'm seeing in this unclassified document or report. And I realized from this assignment that this is way above my pay rate, and I'm sure we have some people on the panel that this is like nothing, and they'll probably get it better than I. But I will try to describe what I got out of this document. The fact that there are two types of wormholes: transversable and non-transversable. Transversable, of course, is you go through one side and then boom, you come out the other side with a nice, as they say in here, a nice 30-mile-an-hour trip, quickly, boom. And then you have your non-transversible, which is like going into a black hole where you enter the event horizon, and well, that's it. You don't come back from that one. But wherever you do, if you end up somewhere, remember this is all theoretical, that thousands and thousands of years could have gone by where civilization is gone, your family, friends, the culture, everything's gone. So that is a one-way ticket. If you want to get back, you're going to need something which is like a dark, exotic energy. And they say that they've been able to create very, very tiny amounts in the lab, but not on a grander scale to create time travel or traversing through wormholes. I'll tell you, it seems a lot more difficult than how they portray in the show Stargate or the movie.
Traversable wormholes. Honestly, I didn't think we'd be having this discussion openly in this generation, but now with this 180 countdown, maybe we're starting to receive more and more droplets of the truth. Now, for decades, people have talked about that the UFOs, UAPs, are traveling in ultra-fast manners, and they theorize that they're traveling faster than light in a straight line. Well, that can't be so if the universal stop sign or speed limit is light, the speed of light. However, on another note, most people lately are starting to recognize the possibility that these craft and these beings are coming through traversable wormholes. Now, if that's the case, they don't need to go from straight line to straight line. They just would jump from dimension to dimension or area to area by essentially using gravity and pulling the other direction by bending the space-time fabric and going through it. Now, let's also talk about Albert Einstein. 1915, he releases a theory of general relativity, which first talks about the idea of wormholes, also known as Einstein-Rosen bridges. And I'm sure if he were alive today, he would not only have been involved in these black ops and probably be one of the top people, if not the person commissioned by the DIA, he'd be really happy to know that, hey, look, we are able to not only observe them and possibly create them, we're able to travel through them successfully. Also, if you notice, Carl Sagan is the one who requested a quote-unquote academic exercise which would lead to, quote, traversable wormholes and time travel. So they sort of go hand in hand. A wormhole essentially could take you back in time, or I guess you could say probable future, since the future changes with every decision you make. Or as I mentioned earlier, another universe, which would hence make this a multiverse, or another place on this planet or galaxy or wherever it may be, and time.
Black projects have been using, or at least have been reported to use, different forms of wormholes and stargates. Montauk Project being one of those at the helm, but there were many other sister projects and offshoots that had experimented with this back in between the 1950s and the 1980s. Now, when we're looking at a wormhole, we're actually looking at the Thorne and Morris model, which is interesting. Now, Kip Thorne, just as a side note, actually had been doing lectures for quite some time. As recently as 2019, he talked about these documents, or at least the material within. But let's talk again a little bit about the physical properties of these anomalies and maybe what they might appear to be like if we were to see one in our everyday life. So if a wormhole of sort were to open up and appear in front of us in some way, shape, or form, it would look like a bright spot either in front of us, in our environment, or in the sky. That being said, it's been said that it will be sort of undulating between the colors of red and blue, which to me is very interesting because a lot of the objects we see in the sky have lights of varying colors, and I've often proposed what those colors might actually mean, and perhaps we have an idea, at least in respect to those two colors and the undulation that we might observe. A stargate itself has a thin layer of exotic matter, as I mentioned, And this is something that, again, really creates the balance between the fields themselves and allows one to enter and exit completely intact. One of the primary uses for negative energy in this way is to keep the wormhole stable, but at the same time, it actually prevents any mixing of energies or materials, we'll say, from anything that passes through. Otherwise, you could have some sort of effect where molecules are distributed and shared, and perhaps when you come out the other side, you won't be looking like the way you went in. We could place a wormhole anywhere, they're proposing, because wormholes are a little bit less in terms of restrictions. You could make some certain assumptions as long as you have the geometry and physics of what is right there at the throat. So given that, I mean, that's really interesting, because if we have the ability and the flexibility to place this anywhere, well, there's an entrance and an exit, and we can pretty much go anywhere in the universe as far as I can tell. Black holes need to be a little bit more specific in their specs, and I believe Stargates actually follow along the same lines as wormholes do to a certain degree when you get into the higher math. Now, harnessing negative energy has sort of been an issue for them moving forward in respect to creating a wormhole or a Stargate on a much larger scale. And the reason for that is because negative energy or exotic matter is very difficult to contain, and if they're going to create it synthetically, they need an enormous amount of power to do this, and it has to be regenerating to some degree if they're going to create and put that energy into something like a wormhole or a Stargate. The issue here is, where can we get an unlimited supply of this negative energy? I mean, there may be, at least in the opinion of the author, there may be some sources that we can tap into in respect to free energy. So that's something to definitely be explored in the future.
I like the fact you can just push buttons and pictures, and there's like only so many of them. Here, you need Einstein. I would, but this is amazing. Luckily it's unclassified. But there's these different type of wormholes. They talk about threading the needle through the wormhole and creating like a tube that encompasses the persons or craft that they would send through this. But once again, like I said, and they even mention this at the beginning of the report, that time travel and wormhole traveling isn't feasible yet. Now, this was 2010. Who knows what they might have done the past 10 years. It's kind of exciting. It would solve a lot of problems if they could nail it down and get it working like the show or movie Stargate. I'm going to be trying to still wrap my mind around what I've read in these papers. It's very impressive. And to me, it looks very legit. I mean, once again, another long scientific bibliography that you can check on the references in this paperwork. I am so blown away that you, the viewers, are sending us this stuff. It's amazing. So, I mean, would you jump through a Stargate or a wormhole?
You can also go back in time. That's why I think this is really inclusive. Now, we all know alphabet soup agencies, the United States federal government, they normally put a lot of money in things when they're trying to come up with new theories, or when they want to have a certain group of scientists, they commission them to look into something. Here, if you look at the references at the end, clearly there was a lot of references, more so than you would see, say, some private citizen. So this shows to me a couple things. Lots of money. It shows the fact that people were involved in writing this document and researching for a long period of time, and more openly that these people know what the heck they're talking about. There's so many details in this that obviously I'm hoping some scientists watching Third Phase of Moon right now, or anybody familiar with the scientific vernacular, would come forward and talk to us about what they are able to see and read. Let me say one more thing about Carl Sagan. If you all recall, he was classmates with the dearly departed Stanton Friedman. And sure, he started SETI, Carl Sagan, but at the same time, he dismissed every UFO report as nothing, as misidentification of Venus or anything like that. That's why he is not someone that I would put at the forefront of UFOs, unless, of course, he was in on it. Publicly was the ridiculer, and inside, privately, under the DIA or other government agencies, was one of the people leading this charge. Let me throw in another thing too, is it also mentions that wormholes do not possess singularity, which would block the tunnel being the ability, or the throat, as it's called in this document, to go from one part of the Einstein-Rosen bridge to the other Einstein-Rosen bridge. Also note, in one of the diagrams that's drawn, you see a human looking what I assume obviously is the past, because they're looking at a dinosaur, which we know they went extinct 60 million years ago. At least that's what we're told. So obviously I'm assuming that person is looking to the past. It looks like the authors of this really thought about everything, and that's why it's over 40 pages and requires more scrutiny. I look forward to hearing what other people have to say, and of course I'm going to keep doing my own research as well as confirming what I can from people that I know. And in the meantime, I have to say this is one of the greatest finds, and just falls in line with what all the stories that have been coming out that we've been covering here on Third Phase of Moon.
The technology behind the DIA papers and the declassified technology being released right now is the possibility of wormholes among us. Are we going to be able to utilize the technology for ourselves right now? I want to thank everybody on the panel for joining us. Keep your eyes on the skies and be safe out there. We've got more UFO videos coming in, including more documents that have not yet been revealed to the public, and it's in regards to some things that might surprise you. Buckle up for that, and make sure you hit that subscription button and notification bell to be notified when we put up our next episode. Blake Cousins, we'll see you next time.
Are beyond any capability that we can identify with an Earth nation, either in delivery, in platform, something that a military is showing, or is in development.
The world's largest UFO hunt is on.
A black triangle, white sort of indicator lights on its peripheral tips coming out of the water.
UFO investigators Blake Cousins in search of off-world vehicles along with his twin brother Brent Cousins. Is there ET presence among us? In search for the truth, disclosure is happening now. The UFO Report has the largest archive of the best UFO videos from around the world. Hidden secrets waiting to be unlocked. Incredible UFO videos captured around the world by the public.
Underwater UFOs, which behave in ways that science can't explain.
If you ever wondered whether we're alone in the universe, the answer is here.
Turn the music off! Oh, dude, my God.
UFO Report, Third Phase of Moon. We're not alone.